Reshus, Harav Lau Shlita, Choshever Rabbanim who have come today. I am going to not mention names because I don't want Chas v'Shalom to leave anyone out. Welcome to all the dignitaries, the councilmen, all the council generals from the various countries who have joined with us, and we'll hear their names later. Honored survivors. Honored families of survivors. Honored guests, all the people who've joined together with us today for this day of remembrance. And it is exceedingly proper that we should be remembering with a little tinge of mourning too, as we approach in the Omer, Lag BaOmer, because we're remembering that there was a time, as we know from the Talmud in Yevamot, in which it talks about the 24,000, the 12,000 pairs of students of Rebbe Akiva who passed away. What the exact reason was is up to discussion, whether it was Al Shalom Nogu Kavod Zeh Bazeh, or that was just a code for sure that could never have happened and they were actually killed by the enemy Romans, or they actually did die in the plague, is not our discussion. But one thing is clear: 24,000 of them did die. And we can wonder to ourselves, why should we celebrate when they stopped dying? Just because they stopped dying, you make a Lag BaOmer, and you make weddings, and you make music, and you go to Rashbi and sing and dance? Why do we make it a Yom Tov? And in back of me, in this Aron Kodesh, there's a story. A survivor of Auschwitz came to me about 10 years ago. And he said, "Rabbi, I want to do something special for my 50th anniversary. What should I do?" And I said, I think it would be wonderful if you could write a Sefer Torah as an everlasting memorial for you and all the loved ones you lost and your entire family. And it will be placed and read in our shul. And so it was. And at the Simcha in which it was presented, I pointed out the following. In the Torah, there are 7 letters that have crowns. The letters are Shatnei Gat, Shin Ayin Tes Nun Zayin, Gimel Tzadik. And on top of each of those letters are 3 tagim, 3 squiggles which make a crown. Why just these letters? Why just these letters have a crown? Because each and every one of these letters has the Hebrew letter Zayin in it. The Shin, one of the legs, is a Zayin. The Ayin, one of the legs, is a Zayin. The Tes, the Nun, the Zayin itself, the Gimel, the Tzadik, each and every one of these letters has that Zayin. And you know what Zayin means? Klei Zayin are weapons. And the Zayin looks like a sword. And you know what the weapons of the Jewish people are? the weapons of Klal Yisrael, the weapons of the survivors, the weapons of their families, of their children. You know what the weapons are? The letters of the Torah. The continued existence of the Jewish people and the remembrance of each and every one of those who passed on is predicated upon the fact that we don't forget, because we have a Torah and we remember it through the living Torah. And that's why Rabbi Akiva, after the destruction of 24,000 students, the Gemara tells us that he sat down, and he sat down with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Meir. And with those 5 students, he once again began to teach. He didn't give up. We do not give up. And because we do not give up, the survival of the Jewish people is ensured through those letters, through those teachings, through the observance of the Yahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, which is what Rabbi Akiva stood for. And so when we gather here today, that's why we're gathering. We're gathering to remember. We're gathering to remember, to commemorate, to think about the past, but most important, to celebrate and commemorate the future. And Klal Yisrael has that future through the Torah. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the assemblyman of our district, someone who's beloved by each and every one of us in our community for all the wonderful things that he does in Albany and worldwide. I want to tell you something. It's more than that. He's my assemblyman. He takes care of me. Anytime you have a problem, you can talk to our assemblyman. And he comes through. I personally experienced the tremendous care he takes for each and every one of the members of our community. It's my honor to introduce to you the Honorable Dov Heiken.
Thank you. Let me just, first of all, it warms my heart to see each and every one of you here. Those who went through the terrible tragedy of the Holocaust, to see the young people who are our future. I can tell you that the 6 million, they are aware, and when we come out the way we do today to remember, this is something that Hashem loves. So I appreciate everyone being here today. Let me just get some things out of the way that, you know, after this is over, I don't want to say, oh my God, I missed mentioning this one or that one. But number one, I want to recognize the Executive Vice President. He is the key player in the Claims Conference, Greg Schneider, for being here today with us. I also want to thank, if you're going to give me any credit for what is happening here today, the real credit, not that we didn't do work, but the real credit is the dedication, devotion, the love that Reisy Horowitz has to the entire community. What Nachas does every single day in trying to make a difference is something that can be emulated and should be emulated by everyone. Let me mention some of the elected officials that are already here. My very, very good friend for many years, Council Member Matthew Eugene, right here in the front. And I also, right to my left, we have Council Member Chaim Deitch. and Senator Simcha Felder. And we'll recognize other people throughout the program. Today, the idea for today is to remember, and also a concept that's very, very important in Judaism, and that is hakaras hatov, recognizing the good that other people have done. And we are going to recognize a diverse group of individuals representing those that during the period of the Holocaust tried to help Jews and actually saved many Jews. But the truth is, and we always have to face the truth, that during the period, the terrible tragedy, the torture, the murder, or the terrible things that befell the Jewish people, the fact is that few countries, few nations of the world, and few people really cared about the Jewish people. No one was really available. The doors of most countries of America, in terms of Jews being able to come here so they would live, the doors were closed. And one of the things that we have learned through the years, it wasn't so clear a long time ago. It has become very clear through many books and the archives that have been opened up, from David Wyman's book, The Abandonment of the Jews, and one of the first books that I read when I was 18 years old or 17 years old, goes back a number of years ago, While 6 Million Died, by Arthur Morse. And there's so many other books, documents that show that sometimes the people we think are our friends, even in Congress, even presidents sometime, today we know better, unfortunately, that nobody wanted Jews. No one. Maybe a few Jews here, there, but the doors were closed for us, and that is the reality of life, unfortunately. And I also have to share with you, as we will move on through the program and listen to our very special guest who arrived just in the last hours from Israel, from Jerusalem. There's one person that I especially miss today, because she would be here. She would be sitting right here. And it's from her that I really listened all of my years about what she went through. It's not easy growing up and trying to understand when your mother is talking to you about going to Auschwitz. Going to Auschwitz in 1944. And the stories she told us. Going to Auschwitz with her mother. And the line they were on. And the nephews and nieces that were on the same line. And how her mother went straight to the gas chamber. This is my upbringing. This is what I listened to. All the stories of our people. So today we're going to recognize some of those who made a difference, because very few people cared. Even Jews in America, even leaders of the Jewish community in America. There were as many Jews in America during the Holocaust as there are today. 5 million. And unfortunately, they did not do what they could have done and what they should have done when our people were being murdered every single day by the thousands and thousands and thousands. We have a swastika in our community. Something happens to a Jew, the entire Jewish community is alarmed, and everybody is ready to act and to do. But when little children, over 2 million children, were murdered by our enemies, not just the Germans. Not just the Germans. My mother often talked about some of the other nationalities. If you can imagine that they were more cruel than the Germans, that they were more vicious and more violent and more filled with hatred. That's the reality. And we have to live that reality, not to be afraid, to have faith in Hashem, and not to be afraid to do the right thing, regardless of anything. Because at the end of the day, Hashem runs the world, no one else. No one else, only God. So we start our program, and this is a name that I have been familiar with for many, many years. There was a man by the name of Chiun Sugihara. And this individual, Japanese diplomat, who served as the vice consul of the Empire of Japan in Lithuania during the period of the Holocaust. This individual, I'm not going to go into the details, but this is about stories of individuals. It's about individuals who did what they could do to save the lives of fellow citizens of the world, in this case, Jews. Sugihara. How many people are familiar with that name? It's a picture we should have on our walls. These people, you know, one of the things we learn is if you save one life, it's as if you have saved the whole world. And Chiun Sugihara, he's responsible for thousands and thousands of people. And how did he do this? By issuing these certificates. He was just signing them and giving them out to as many Jews as he could. And these documents made it possible for individual Jews to get out and to go to safety. I remember when someone said to me when I was younger, you know, outside of Yad Vashem, there's a valley dedicated to the righteous. We're all familiar with it, and Sugihara's name is there. But it is so short. There are not a lot of names, because very, very few people really cared when the issue was the very survival of men, women, and children. And I want to call up, because we want to recognize today, all of us. We have here with us Mr. Fumio Hawaii, who is the Deputy Consul General of Japan. Would you please join us? And also, I want to call up somebody else, Mr. Benny Fishoff, who's going to join us at the same time. Mr. Fishoff is a survivor of the Shanghai ghetto, and I'm going to ask the Consul General to say a few words. But we are here today because Sugihara was an example of what one can do if you only have the desire, if you only want to do. Because Sugihara disobeyed orders from his government. He didn't do exactly what his government wanted him to do, but he understood what human life was all about. And this person is responsible, it is estimated, over 6,000 people. What does 6,000 people translate in terms of the families and the families and the families? Okay, Benny, please.
I actually am here to thank the Japanese people, especially the honor of Mr. Sugihara, as you heard before from Dov Hiking, Now we have the pleasure to meet the Consul General of Japan, Mr. Iwai. Mr. Iwai, I'm here to thank you, not only on behalf of myself. I had the it's a miracle that I got the visa from Sugihara's son, but I'm here to thank you on behalf of the Jewish people, and particularly of my own family, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. When you speak about Mr. Sugihara, who gave one visa to one person, a 15-year-old boy, I got married, thank God. I had 5 children, thank God. They got married, 28 grandchildren, over 50 great-grandchildren. So how do I thank you for giving us life? You gave us life, a good life, a wonderful life. After I met Mr. Sugihara, the world has changed for us. But on the other hand, Mr. Iwai, please remember, I was only one of 300 people. My other 299 families all perished in the Holocaust. So we're here to celebrate and thank you for my life and my family. We can't forget what happened to the other parts of the family. My parents, my 3 sisters, my 2 brothers, hundreds of people in the family here. So we have to keep in mind that what Mr. Sugihara did, he gave us a survival, renewal of our life, but the very, very high price we paid here. Nevertheless, my job today is to thank you on behalf not only of my own family, but all the other families. You heard from Mr. Heiken say there were 6,000. Mr. Sugihara gave 2,139 visas. By the way, my name is on the last page, the last minute, 10 minutes before you close down. I have a copy of that. So you can imagine the miracle that happened to me alone. So on behalf of 2,139 visas, which represent today over 100,000 people alive, perhaps 200,000. They can't all be here, but I represent them to say thank you. Domo arigato.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the Japanese people, as Deputy Chief Mission of the Japanese Consulate in New York, I just gratefully accepted this beautiful plaque honoring the righteous man, Mr. Chiune Sugihara, and his life-saving actions during World War II. I was very moved by Mr. Bishop's experiences and his feelings of gratitude. I thank him for sharing these powerful memories with us today. The Jewish and Japanese people share a history of helping one another. This is exemplified by actions of Mr. Sugihara and Mr. Jacob Schiff. In 1904, Mr. Schiff, who worked at Kuhn Loeb and Company, helped Japan finance its war efforts during the Russia-Japanese War. He did this by buying the equivalent of nearly $200 million worth of bonds in today's markets, which the Japanese government at that time could not find any purchasers. Mr. Schiff had wished to take this action against the horrific pogrom of Tsarist Russia in Kishinev in 1903. The admiration with which many Japanese people viewed Mr. Schiff, who indeed had helped save Japan from becoming a Russian colony, was transferred to their view of Jewish people in general. In 1938, at the 5 Ministers' Council of the Japanese Imperial Government issued a basic policy towards Jews, which stated clearly that they would be treated no differently from other foreigners. This was issued in the face of extreme pressure from Germany, which Japan was allied with at that time. And as eloquently explained by Honorable Assemblyman Hyken, Mr. Chiune Sugihara signed thousands of transit visas day and night so that 6,000 Jewish people could flee the country. But in addition to Mr. Sugihara, there were many Japanese individuals who helped secure their journey to safety in a sort of conspiracy of goodness. For the Jewish refugees who had reached Vladivostok via the Trans-Siberian Railway from Europe, Japanese officials there reinterpreted the standing official regulations to permit them to board a ship to Japan in safety. Then the city Kobe, where the Jewish people stayed for a while, the conspiracy to help continued. In fact, a transit visa they got from Consul Sugihara was valid just for 10 days. So in somewhat illegal fashion, officials in Kobe kept extending transit visas, which were in danger of expiring. A protected Jewish community in Kobe grew and ensured the survival of Mir Yeshiva, I believe, which thrives in Brooklyn today. This conspiracy of kindness happened in the face of the Holocaust. The Holocaust showed us, indeed, the depth and the heights of humanity. The depths never to be repeated, and the heights, the courage of acting on your beliefs, something to be emulated always. So the acts of Mr. Jacob Schiff and Mr. Sugihara continue to contribute the friendship between the Jewish and Japanese people, as well as our two nations. With all that we share in values and history, let us continue to be inspired by those two great men to take action for the protection, prosperity, peace, dignity of all others together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to mention that Sugihara, when he was leaving Lithuania, was writing out the transit visas all of that night, and as the train was moving, had signed these visas without even names being on it and threw them out the window. Just an unbelievable story, and I wish there was a lot more. Let me move on next to recognize today, to give tribute to Jean Suwarandik. Please, see, nobody corrected me, so I'm doing well. We have here today the Consul General of the Netherlands, Rob de Vos, who is going to join me. And again, Jean Suwarandik was a Dutch businessman and diplomat who helped Jews escape Lithuania during the war. And again, he was involved, an example of trying to save Jews and trying to save people, and that's exactly what he did. And we want to recognize the Consul General. We're going to call up Mike Hellman, who also is a survivor from Shanghai Ghetto, and also the Consul General of the Netherlands. They're both going to join us. I want you to know about Moshe Hellman. In all the years I know him, which is a very long time, within the first minute of talking to him about whatever it is, whether he calls me or I call him, there's always a great Devar Torah. So today I didn't get a Devar Torah. Maybe you'll include it in the remarks from the Netherlands. Go.
I'll leave the Devar Torah to the Rabbonim. My personal course to you, I'll continue the Divrei Torah. I was born in China, and my parents, of course, were given the visa by Sugihara, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. He gave my parents the visa. He gave Rabbi Zupnik the stamp, the seal of his ambassadorship in Lithuania. And he says, I can't sign as many as there are people waiting online, but I want them all saved. He gave this Rabbi Zupnik his seal. He says, go do it. I'll do as many as I can. You do as many as you can. This was a tzaddik, Sugihara. And as a result, of course, my parents ran to China. And I was born in China. I came here when I was 3. But what I wanted to take out from just one word from what the ambassador Iwai, the Consul General, said, that this Mr. Schiff, who did a tremendous favor to the Japanese, to Japan, to the country, and it's because of him that the Japanese felt a certain hakoras hatoiv, a certain recognition of good to Klal Yisrael. Imagine one Yid, one Jewish person did a toiva to a country, and that country remembered it for all of Klal Yisrael. So I have a new pshat in Kol HaMekayim Nefesh Achas. If there's one Nefesh Mi Yisrael, is Kilu Kiyam Oilo Moli. It's not Poshe Pshat, but Kilu Kiyam Oilo Moli. He saved a whole world. He saved all those who Japan saved. So I think the lesson for me, and maybe if I could suggest for all of us here, is that it's important to do chesed, that it's important to do toivus, whether it is for Am Yisrael or whether it is not for Am Yisrael. For every human being on this earth, there is a tremendous amount. I thank you for listening. I can't share any stories that I lived through in China because I don't remember anything. It's what I came here when I was 3. I know many stories, but it's what was told to me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much for sharing this story with us. Honored survivors and honored families of survivors. I stand in front of you as a representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands with mixed feelings. Why? Because at once we are proud to honor Jan Zwartendijk, because he did what he thought was best. He was not a bystander. He issued these visas for the Caribbean island of Curaçao, where in the end people didn't go. But I'm also reminded of a painful past in our history. Why? Because we in the Netherlands, we lost 75% of our Jewish population. 75%. The heart and soul of a city like Amsterdam was taken out. And we all know never to be recovered. And we asked, I'm of a generation that we asked our parents, what did you do in the war? We challenged them. But with hindsight, it's easy to judge. I believe it's far more important to commemorate, to tell the story, what has happened. because we can draw lessons. And the next generation doesn't have parents anymore to ask these questions. So this beautiful event is a stimulus for all of us to commemorate and ask teachers, politicians, scholars, all of us to continue commemorating the Holocaust. Because there's this danger of denial, and unfortunately, that is growing. And there's only one way to fight this and to tell these stories. So I'm honored to be here, but it's all painful. It's also a memory of the past, and it's also a lesson of these days of commemoration in New York. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm going to have him come. I'm going to have him come in. Greg Schneider. Again, I want to move the program along because I am very excited about our special guest from Israel who's going to be speaking to us shortly. You know, one of the other names that has gotten a lot of attention, I think people are familiar with that name. One of the reasons I think for the world in general is because there was a film that was made about him and people are familiar. The other person we just want to give recognition, and it's very interesting because the two people we've just mentioned in the past few minutes were both diplomats. They were part of the diplomatic corps. They were part of the government. And they took it upon themselves. You know, they didn't always follow the rules, thank God, because many times the government did not support what they were doing, but they did the right thing. And then we have somebody a little different, someone by the name of Oskar Schindler, who is, in fact, last night I was going through, you can see there are 30 or 40 or 50 names on a page. This is a list of the actual people, the Jews that were saved by Oskar Schindler. And he was not a diplomat at all. In fact, he was friendly with the Nazis. And he was a fun-loving guy having a good time. But something in his heart was touched. And in the end, he played such an important role in saving thousands of people. And there are people in this audience here, going back, who because of Oskar Schindler, they are alive, and of course the generations that come afterwards. And I mentioned to you earlier, and I never finished my remark, maybe it was a little difficult for me. I said, there's one person missing here for me. And it's very hard, because I see her. And that's my mother, you know, who passed away literally just about a year ago. And my mother, in the beginning, never spoke about the Holocaust, but the last 10, 15, 20 years of her life never stopped talking about the Holocaust. Every single Shabbos, she would tell different stories about what she went through. And when you recognize, when you understand, and I'm speaking to all the students, the young people, the next generation, we have to remember not just for the sake of remembering, because we have to recognize, as the Council General said, I wish I could say to you that the world has changed. It's not the same world anymore. There's a recognition of what evil is. There's a recognition that murdering innocent civilians is something of the past, not the present. But unfortunately, we all know the reality. The Wall Street Journal just had a story 2 days ago based on a study that was done about anti-Semitism all over the world. 40%, 50% of people throughout the world say there was no Holocaust. It's not accurate, it's not true. This is the reality. And we know the situation in terms of the enemies of Israel, but it's not the enemies of Israel, ladies and gentlemen. It's the enemies of the Jewish people. There's something that people have against us. I haven't been able to figure it out because we don't bother anyone. We just want to live. We just want to be able to live. So we have to be aware. We have to be prepared to speak out and to stand up and to do the right thing regardless. And that is hopefully what I have tried to do. And I don't deserve any recognition for it, because when your parents go through what my parents went through and what the Jewish people went through, how can you not do? How can you not stand up against anti-Semitism? So Oskar Schindler was one of those people, and I'm going to call up somebody not connected to Oskar Schindler, but someone who is doing tremendous work, working with survivors, to try to make their life as easy and pleasant and to deal with difficulties that people face sometimes. And I'm talking about the leader of the Claims Conference, who's going to speak to you right now. I'm talking about Greg Schneider. And then we move on to really the heart of our program in just a few minutes.
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Greg Schneider, and I'm the head of an organization called the Claims Conference. I think many people in the room know about it. We negotiate with Germany, with Austria, with Hungary, with other governments for compensation, both for individual payments, either pensions or one-time payments, and for funds for welfare, for home care, for food, for medicine. So we're here today to remember the people who were killed, certainly to honor the survivors who are in the room today, their strength, their resilience, the ability to rebuild lives and to push forward. But I didn't want the opportunity to go by for there to be a room full of a couple hundred survivors, for someone for the Claims Conference not to be here, to say that we're working, we're trying. I assume that almost everybody's receiving a pension or getting a pension, but I could tell you, whatever you're getting, it's not enough. We're trying to get more. We're trying to increase the payments, increase the amounts for home care, increase the amounts for medicine, and for the other programs that we're able to provide. We work every day, negotiating, cajoling, pushing, striving for more. But for me, to be here in this room, looking out at this audience and to see these people gives me the strength, the fortitude, the koyach to go to Berlin, to go to Vienna, and to make the case, to explain the needs, the tremendous needs, what people need and what we need to go forward. I just want to say one final word, which is normally I address myself to the survivors in the room because clearly it's the most important group for the Claims Conference. The one thing that today is a little bit different, and I have to say, kol hakavod to Raisi and to Nachas and to the other organizations, Bikar Cholam, is to bring the students. When you hear the story of Benny Fishoff, I've known Benny for 20 years, and you hear his story, that one person, this guy Sugihara, maybe you know the name, you don't know the name, but what he did saved Mr. Fishoff's life, and his kids, and his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren. So what lesson do you learn from that? It's so empowering. What you do can make a difference, can change the world. That's the story of the Claims Conference, that we don't give up, we continue to push. It's not perfect, but we do the best that we can. And so I implore you, for the students here, I congratulate you for being here and for taking the lesson. Everything you can do, make a difference, and you can change the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm not going to do justice. I know Rabbi Lau, we were talking just a short while ago, going back over 32 years. Let me just give you a little bit of background. Rabbi Lau was born in June of 1937 in the Polish town of Pietrzyca. His father, of blessed memory, Moshe Chaim Lau, was the last chief rabbi of the town, and he died, the word died, he didn't die, he was murdered at Treblinka, at the Treblinka extermination camp. In 1942, the majority of the city's Jews were deported to Treblinka. Among the victims was Rabbi Lau's father. At that time, I mean, this is just, you have to close your eyes and think that Rabbi Lau, at that point in his life, was 5 years old. 5 years old. And he managed, by the way, if you were 5 years old, you didn't have a chance. You didn't have a chance. You were going straight to the gas chamber. The Nazis didn't need 5-year-old children. There was no use for them. There was no purpose for a 5-year-old child in that world. But Hashem runs the world. In November 1944, during the selection, his mother succeeded in pairing him with his older brother, Naphtali, who was in the slave labor camp, and I know Naphtali from way back when he was the consul general here in New York. And I remember visiting with him at the Israeli consulate. Not visiting. If I was at the Israeli consulate, I was doing something for somebody someplace. No, please. And Rabbi Lau, he was called Lulik, as I said, was deported with his brother to the slave labor camp of Buchenwald. At the age of 8 in 1945, he was liberated in Buchenwald by American forces. His entire family was murdered, with the exception, of course, of his brother. The story, the powerful story of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old surviving in a death camp. That story, the details, how that happened, that story is told in an international bestseller called Out of the Depths that Rabbi Lau wrote, which of course, everyone should read. It should be read to your children and to your grandchildren. And Rabbi Lau has devoted his life. We could talk about the smichas that he got and the yeshivas that he went to when he got to Israel, Kol Torah, under Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Padovich, etc., etc. But Rabbi Lau is an example of what one can do with his life if Hashem gives you a chance. You know what that chance is? Surviving, living, breathing. And Rabbi Lau has devoted his life as the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, the chief rabbi of Israel. But it's not about titles. It's about having a heart. It's about having a soul. It's about recognizing that God has given you a second chance, and I'm going to use that the rest of my life. And that is exactly what Rabbi Lau has done. And it is with the greatest respect, the greatest derech eretz, and the greatest honor to be able to introduce to you one of the great leaders of the Jewish people, Rabbi Lau.
Rabbi Snow, the Mara de Atra, Dov Heikind, Kvod HaRabbanim, all the excellencies, the diplomats, Bernie Fishop, my old dear friend, survivors, ladies and gentlemen, Morai v'Rabotai. April 11, 1945, after almost 6 years of horror, the American army, led by General Patton, broke in the gates of Buchenwald, a concentration camp near the city of Weimar, northeast Germany. Rabbi Herschel Schechter, the Tzaddik Levrocha of the Bronx, he was the chaplain. He came into the barracks and was screaming in each barrack, Jiden, ihr seid frei. Jews, you are free. Everyone looked at him with a very strange look. It doesn't make sense. Frei. Wohin soll ich gehen? Where shall I go? Frei. 50 years later, April 11, 95, I was invited to Weimar, the city that Buchenwald is in its suburb, to the National Theater of Weimar, where Goethe and Heine and Schiller used to play and sing and speak there, the center of culture of Germany, maybe of Europe. And the same National Theater of Weimar was an ingathering of survivors of Buchenwald on the anniversary of 50 years since the liberation. Hundreds came from all over the world, hundreds, not only Jews. Konrad Adenauer, the Chancellor of Germany, he himself was a prisoner in Buchenwald with us. As the mayor of the city, Köln, he was anti-Nazi. They put him in the concentration camp. 2 Nobel Prizes in literature, one from France, one from Spain, not Jewish. They were prisoners in Buchenwald as communists, anti-Nazis. All of these people came 50 years later, mainly Jews, to celebrate 50 years. I was invited that time as Chief Rabbi of Israel already, but as a survivor, maybe the youngest survivor of Buchenwald, to speak on behalf of the survivors. I don't sleep in Germany, and there is no straight flight from Israel to Weimar. The president of North Westphalia gave me a helicopter in the morning from Frankfurt to Weimar, back from Weimar to Frankfurt. 4 o'clock p.m. I had my flight back to Tel Aviv. The same day I made it. When I stood up to speak, I said to them, dear friends, survivors, most of them knew me as the child of Buchenwald. This is my second visit to Buchenwald. First one was over 50 years ago, on January 45. I was smuggled in a sack on the shoulder of my brother Naftali, because he knew that Buchenwald is for men only. When they will see a child of 7.5 years old, they will shoot him on the spot. So he smuggled me in a sack. When I came in out of the sack and they gave me a P on my sleeve that I am a Polish child, an orphan, it's the whole story. That time I didn't have a name, no identity, no personality. I was a number. Häftling means prisoner. 117030 117030. This was my identification. 50 years later, I came here for the second visit. I have a name. I have my personality. I have my duty. I am a chief rabbi of an independent Jewish state, Israel. What a difference from the first visit to the second one. So you can say, after such a difference, maybe time arrived already to open a new chapter. Let's forget about the past. Let's forgive about what happened. Let's open a new era. This is the reason why I came here to Buchenwald, to Weimar, to tell you that we will never forget and we will never forgive. Never. Because to forget is impossible. You cannot forget. And this is gathering here in Beth El, Young Israel of Beth El, the 15th Avenue, New York, Brooklyn. 69 years later, including young girls from Beit Yaakov or other institutions. If they are here 69 years after the liberation. So you see, we cannot forget. It's impossible. Lo tishkach. Lo tishkach, what the Torah says, is not only an order. It's a prophecy. Moshe Rabbeinu told us, Zachor, remember, is an order. Do everything to remember. Like this event, the Dov hike in the range, this is Zachor. Lo tishkach is a prophecy. You will never forget. And to forgive, I told them in Weimar, how can I forgive? It depends only on me. Who gave me the authority and the permission to forgive? My father, you killed him in age of 50 in Treblinka. My mother, you shooted her in the last day of the war in age of 44 in Ravensbrück. My brother, who was a bar mitzvah boy, also in Treblinka, in the gas chambers, they asked me to forgive you. They permitted me to forgive you. I cannot forget, and I am not allowed to forgive. Then I asked them after the ceremony, the helicopter was waiting. I told the pilot, please wait for me at the gate of Buchenwald. From there, you take me back to Frankfurt, and then I can have my jet. I said, how will you arrive to Buchenwald? I said, I want to go to walk by my feet. Because the people of Weimar said that they didn't know that Buchenwald existed. The American troops brought the German people of Weimar after the war to show them what happened here. The torture room and the crematoria, which exist till this very last day. There was no gas chambers in Buchenwald. The crematoria worked day and night. Everything exists, even today. They brought them, and General Patton lifted me up on his command car. In the eyes of many ladies, old ladies, German ladies from Weimar, lifted me up. I was less than 8 years old. And I was like a child of 4 or 5 years, not developed physically at all. He lifted me up and said, German people, this was your enemy. Against such a child, you declared a war. Did he threaten you? You were afraid of this child? That's why you declared a war to liquidate his people? What did he do any harm to you? And they said, we didn't know. We didn't know. The trains, day and night. They didn't know. The smoke from the crematoria, day and night. Years from 1936 to 1945, they didn't know. I said to the pilot of the helicopter, I want to walk. We have time enough to catch my plane in Frankfurt and Al. I have to see how long, how far is it. I walked 8 minutes only. Not driving, walking. 8 minutes. And I found the gate, the same gate. In iron, there is a paragraph, sentence. Everyone to his destiny, in German. It means we are not responsible for your life, for your health. Everyone to his destiny. You can see it even today. 8 minutes walk. Thousands of people. 9 years. They didn't know, they didn't see, they didn't hear. So that's what I said. How can I forgive? This gathering here in Brooklyn, in Borough Park, is one of the many evidence what the Torah promised us, Lo tishkach, you will never forget. To forget is a gift given by the Lord Almighty. Ribono Shel Olam gave us a present. Look at the book of Chovot HaLevavot of Rabbeinu Bechaya, in the Shar, the chapter of Cheshbon HaNefesh, research, speaking about to forget. It's a present from heaven. Without forgetting, you wouldn't marry a woman, you wouldn't bring children, you wouldn't study, you wouldn't work, you wouldn't live. But it doesn't mean to forget the event. God forbids, it doesn't mean to forget the victims, the Kedoshim, sacred people. To forget the pain a little bit, to forget the sorrow, to forget the misery, to start to live, to try to give a smile, to brace a child, to kiss a grandchild. This is a present from heaven that we can do it, but not to forget the stories. Because if you forget, God forbids, another Holocaust is waiting out of the door. Only if you remember, you can promise that what happened in the past will never reappear in the future, in any time, in any place, against any nation. Only if you forget. Remember. 1982, I came on a visit here to New York when my brother, Naftali Lau Lavi, as you mentioned, was the Consul General of Israel, survivor of Auschwitz and Buchenwald. I was lucky to be in Buchenwald only. He was in both. He put the railways from Auschwitz to Birkenau at the age of 16. Was kept from the street. They took him to work. He escaped from Auschwitz. A long story. You can see it in his book. Balaam's Prophecy. Am Kalavi is the name of the book in Hebrew. And he was here Consul General 4 years. When I came on 82 to visit, he said to me, the mayor of New York, Ed Koch, heard about our story, the Holocaust. He asked me, in case that you come to New York, he wants to meet with you. Do you accept this invitation? I said, gladly. Why not? He took me on the way to the City Hall of New York, downtown of Manhattan. I asked my brother a little bit about that Ed Koch. Who is he? He said, he's a Jewish. Ed is not Ed, he's Avruam. Ketch is Katz, Cohen Tzedek. Avruam Katz, Ed Koch. From where he was born here in the Bronx. I come, he praised me. In presence of the mass media who was there, was an expert in this field, he said, you know, I am also a survivor. I looked at my brother. Someone here is wrong. He told me that he was born here in the Bronx. How is he a survivor? He explained himself. As a mayor of New York in the first year, I was invited to Germany, that time West Germany, among other mayors of the largest cities in the world. We came to the room, to the office of Adolf Hitler, the Marshal. And we saw a globus. Charlie Chaplin made of it a whole film about that globus. The Small Dictator is the name of the film. On the globus of Hitler were many, many numbers, black ink, a beautiful colored globus. Numbers. Almost every country was a number. We asked the guide, what are these numbers? You have it today. He said, Hitler ordered his staff in the day of September the 1st, 1939, the day of breaking the war, World War II, you have to prepare the globus with the numbers of every country in the world, how many Jews are in that country. They are my target. They are the reason of my war. I must clean up the globus from these dirty Jews. Until I will not clean up the whole globus, I will not finish my war. This is my Kampf, my war. Ed Koch says, on Albania, there was the number 1. He didn't give up even one Jew living in the capital city of Albania, Tirana. He cannot live if a Jew will breathe in Tirana of Albania. And then I saw United States of America, a very symbolic number, 6 million. I was one of these 6 million, said Ed Koch. I was that time here in New York. I was born already. On the number of 6 million, I was included. If he wouldn't stop the beast, the Nazis, he would go further and further till he will clean up the whole globe. So I am a survivor too, said the coach. I would have the same destiny of the other 6 million who perished. Very smart and historic sentence. Our 6 million Jews in America would have, God forbid, the same destiny of those 6 million Jews of Europe if you wouldn't stop it. So am I also a survivor. These young girls you see here now gathered, they are also survivors. Those who were there in the hell, these are what the prophet says, Ud Mutzal Me'esh. Out of the fire, out of the hell. In Hebrew we call it Sridim, Sridei Shoah. But all the Jewish people, in present and in future, are survivors of the Holocaust. All of you, with us. I have a lot to tell you. And a lot more to say, but I don't want to take your time too long. Only one sentence. Because this is very important for me. I said a part of it 2 weeks ago in Auschwitz, Birkenau, the March of the Livings. I'm leading it since 1988, and I never missed a March of the Living 26 times already. We say in our prayer, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Aseh le'ma'an, do for the sake of Ba'ei Ba'esh Uvamayim al Kiddush. Those who are ready to give their lives, to sacrifice themselves in fire and in water, to sanctificate your name. My father-in-law was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, Rabbi Yitzchak Yedidia Frankel, the Tzaddik Levon. He said to me once, why speak the prayer about Ba'ei Ba'esh Uvamayim? Fire and water were not the most popular ways to liquidate the Jewish people. How many of you know about water? Among the 6 million, water, a minority. Even fire, minority. There were. Yedvabne and other cities, the whole Jews all the Jews of the city were gathered in the shul, the synagogue. Synagogue was made of wood, and they burned the shul with the Jews inside. Many shtetl. Zdoinska Vola, other states, other cities. But this was not the majority. Why don't you mention Macherev, the sword, the war, Ra'av, starvation, freezing, diseases, beatings to death, buried alive, Esh Umayim. Why these two? Rav Frankel said, Esh Umayim, pay attention. There is a very special difference between one who died in fire to the one who died in water. The one who died in fire, nothing is left but ashes. The one organ, the one bone, the one part of the body burned in the flames, you have only ash. In some wind, gone with the wind, even the ash is not remained. Majdanek, you have the ash yet, because it's the whole mountain of ashes today. But in water is just the contrary. The whole body is there. All the hair, all the nails, all the organs. Someone who died by sinking in the water, but no spirit, no life, no vitality, a dead corpse. What Frankel said. All the 6 million victims of the Holocaust belong to the first group, Ba'ei Ba'esh, all kinds of fire. Starvation, beaten, frozen, diseases, all kinds of fire, nothing remains. You don't have a grave, there is no stone, there is no a date, there is no a place, brutality, 6 million Ba'ei Ba'esh. Then there are more than 6 million victims. Those who died like in water. What means? The body is here. They make their living. They became even wealthy sometimes. They built families. They made a career. They are self-made men. But Ruach Ein Bahem. They lost the spirit. They lost their soul. They go, they walk, they eat, they sleep, they wake up, but with no vitality, because they lost the faith. They lost the tradition. They lost the Jewish heritage. They lost the spirit of the Jewish people. Aseh leman ba'ei ba'esh uvamayim. Both are victims of the Holocaust. Both sects. Those who perished and those who live without emunah, without faith. And I say to them, I speak to them very often, I understand that you are angry. I understand that you have questions. I understand the questions better than you think I do. We don't have the answers. We cannot have the answers. Me'od amku machshavotecha. Your thoughts, Lord Almighty, your decisions, Rebbeinu Shalom, are ununderstood for me. That's what Eov heard from the Lord. You cannot understand. We cannot even look at the sun. We cannot understand everything which is going in the stars, beyond the oceans, and above heaven, and other worlds. Of course, we cannot understand your thoughts, your behavior, your decisions. But if that moment of you, survivor, or the family of the survivor, show your back to the Jewish tradition, and you say that this is because of, whom do you punish? Only yourself. You pay twice. You paid 6 years of the war, and now you pay 66 years, 69 years of losing an address, losing the values of tradition. Rebbeinu Shalom will not bring bankruptcy if you will not put that film every morning, but you lose. If you will not observe the Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's not his lose, it's yours. Whom do you punish? Only yourself. And one thing more. How many times, ask my friends here, did you hear in the train stations, when they took the parents, or one of them, and you stayed in the street, or when they were pushed into the chambers, and you, after a selection, stayed outside, how many times did you hear the screamings of our parents? Moishaveh, gedenk ad bist Yid. Remember that you are Jewish. I think every one of us heard it at least once. Surale, Eleyale, gedenk as du a Shabbos, gedenk von wann du stammst. From where do you come from? Remember who you are. Don't forget your identity. So I said to my people, the last will of our parents, the Kadosh, it's not worthy to fulfill their last testament. What did they ask? To keep Shabbos? To keep kosher? Always remembering us, these were the last words. Remember who you are, Mr. Yid. I remember one who was crying to his, not my father, another one. Later, I was 7.5. The father went away and he said to him, my friend, blab a mensch and blab a Yid. Be a human being and be a Jewish. You cannot forget it. Sei a mensch and blab a Yid. Something that we owe it. Not to be ba'eba mayim. We cannot save those who perished in flames, but those who live with no spirit, we are ought to give it back to them, to tell them what they said in Auschwitz. Shuvu habayta, come back home. Return home. Shuvu elai v'ashuv aleichem, come back to the roots of the family, to the fundaments of the nation. The last, not least, the word about the righteous among the nations. We are here speaking about three names only. Sugihara, Schwarzenegger, and Schindler. In my function as the chairman of the Council of Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, I can tell you, it's not a secret, but something that not everyone knows, how many righteous among the nations are. We are 69 years later. Yad Vashem made a research and investigated over 60 years after the righteous from all the nations. There is a committee led by a member of the chief, I would say the chief court of Israel. Of the Supreme Court, there is always one judge who is the chairman of the Committee of Investigation, who deserves the title of Chasid Umot HaOlam, the righteous among the nations. Supreme Court judge and a group of historians, people who know a lot about the Holocaust, and they declare who is the righteous. And there is a tree with his name tattooed. How many did we find? 24,000. 24,000. You can say that 24,000 is a large number. 24,000, not only 3. But I tell you, 24,000, very few. Very, very few. Take only one nation, the German. Another nation, the Polacks. Another nation, the Hungarians. Another nation, the Lithuanians. And all the other nations. What was the population of these nations? Millions above millions. In Poland, we were 3.5 million Jews. Who were the doctors who gave medical treatment to our neighbors? Who were the authors? Who were the education, the teachers? Who were the industrial people who built industry and give employment to our neighbors? Who built the textile of Lodz? Who were the professors in the universities in all fields of science, including medicine? From the whole world, hundreds of millions of people, 24,000 were ready to sacrifice themselves to save Jewish lives. It is a number, 24,000, but it had to be much more, many more. It had to be. I said once, if Pius XII, the Pope of that time, would say one word, one manifest, to save innocent people's life, men, women and children, babies, the boulevard, the avenue of the righteous among the nations in Yad Vashem, the trees would arrive from Jerusalem till Rome, till the Vatican. But it's not, because we didn't hear even one word how to prevent mass murder of innocent people in the millions. So how can we forgive? How can we forget? We cannot. I want only to say the world was divided at that time into 4 parts. One part were the victims. One part were the murderers, the Nazi German and their allies and their assistants in all the countries. The third part was the majority of mankind at that time, who stood on the blood doing nothing. They didn't say a word. This was the majority of mankind. President Roosevelt entered into the war only after Pearl Harbor. Not in 40, not in 41, not in 42, not in 43, not in 45. They didn't do anything. Churchill didn't bomb the railways to Auschwitz to stop the mass killing of the Hungarian Jews, 50,000 a day, till they will fix the railway. He said, we wait till we will defeat the Nazis, then the Jewish lives will be saved by itself. Who will state it? There are documents what I say. The fourth part of mankind of that time was the smallest one. After the victims, and after the murderers, and after those who stood doing nothing, they were in the millions. There was the fourth part. 24,000 stars who enlightened the dark tunnel of the 20th century. We were in a very dark tunnel. In that tunnel, there were 24,000 stars, like the three you have mentioned today, like all the others who gave us the hope that humanity can have a future, a better one, a enlightened one. We owe them the memory. We owe them the eternity. Because of them, some of us are important. Because of them, who are messengers of Ribono Shel Olam, we could and can say even today, Am Yisrael Chai.
Auschwitz, Majdanek, Treblinka, Ovishare, Machenoi Zashemad, B'Europa, Biad hazekuras Astira mis heiser kinofov Lio elamin Viteroer achayim esin ishem oslam Adonai hu nachalu eslam V'yonucho b'sholem alem ish